In de vorige aflevering van Permacultuur in Australië hebben we gezien hoe een aantal mensen genoeg hadden van hun banen en de manier waarop hun leven verliep in een cyclus van werken en consumeren en een leven in de natuur verkozen zonder allerlei luxe. De een was daartoe gekomen via reizen, de ander door bewustwording van chemische toevoegingen in het voedsel. Wat de reden dan ook mocht zijn, ze vonden allen een antwoord in de permacultuur. Een alomvattend systeem ontwikkeld in Australië, waardoor zelfs een grote mate van zelfvoorzienendheid kon worden bereikt. We zijn op zoek gegaan naar wat permacultuur nou precies inhoudt. Want een afgepast antwoord, zoals zal blijken, valt niet te geven omdat iedereen zijn eigen invulling aan permacultuur geeft. Bijvoorbeeld Rene en Marianne van Raders hebben een hele creatieve methode om met permacultuur om te gaan. We gaan dit bekijken en horen in het volgende interview.
How do you make a piece of bare or just grassland into a lush garden with vegetables and flowers in a house?
Well,
how do you do that?
You make a lot of mistakes to start with. We've made plenty of mistakes along the way, but nature's very forgiving, and so some things will die along the way, but other things just will go.
I mean,
but what is the difference?
Permaculture isn't a growing system. Like permaculture is not about this is how you should till the soil. There are many different approaches and they can all fit within permaculture. Permaculture is about thinking. It's about trying to get cycles happening so that, for instance, we dug the pond here and to most people that's a beautiful pond. Mm-hmm. But what's the permaculture part of it is that as we dug the pond, we filled up the tubs. The pond is part of a cycle of water that goes all the way through here, through the swale, comes into the pond. The pond has many functions. That's the permaculture part, not that we have a pond.
The permaculture part is that many things have many functions.
That's right.
That's the basis of it?
That's one of the principles. I mean, permaculture is a whole system with many, many different parts.
But you take into account the cycles that go on, and you try and fit the cycles together and fit things in well so that you're not doing as much work as you would have done if you weren't following the cycles.
And that you are so much dependent on the outside world in order to sustain and feed yourself.
Yeah. And also people in Holland can practice permaculture. A lot of people think, permaculture sounds terrific, but it will only work in the tropics. Well, permaculture in Holland will look completely different than this.
Yeah.
Because it will be suited to the climate of Holland. You'll find out what used to be like in Holland before a lot of the agriculture took place, and you'd probably mimic it. Like here, this was rainforest 80 years ago, before it was all deforested. And so now a lot of the places you'll see in our orchard, we've planted it like a rainforest, and it actually mimics what was once here.
So what you start out with is look how nature is working at that moment, and you follow that and you continue with it, but you regulate it a little bit because you want to have certain flowers and certain vegetables. I see.
It's about looking at what the land and the climate can provide you, instead of coming onto a piece of land and saying, I want to grow this, and you change everything so that it will grow, whatever you're trying to grow. You go to the land and you see, what will the land provide me? What will the climate provide? And work with it. Plus, of course, you've got to work with the people, what the people want. So this is our design for this piece of land. But if somebody else was here, it would look different. Yeah. And if it was in a different place, it would look different.
It's not a straight piece of land where you can have all the cauliflowers or potatoes. This is everything.
You could have done it that way. It's not like that would be wrong. It's just there are many different ways you could do things.
Permaculture is also about the personalities of the people who live there. So you can
they
see
fit
our personality
within the system,
here.
the personality of the person.
That's right.
But I see a lot of companion planting. Is that right?
Yes. Well, we
is
don't
that
actually.
A conscious decision?
We don't grow very much of any one thing, which is basically because we like to have variation. It means that if something goes wrong with one particular crop, we've always got something else to eat. But we also do companion plant because we don't have any really tried and true methods. We just interplant things so that the bugs don't find everything.
I mean, and in some way, companion planting just is common sense. If you've got something that likes shade, you put it underneath something that's providing shade.
Yeah.
In that sense, we're doing companion planting. In the sense where you plant this with that, it's not, for a start, we don't have that tradition in the tropics. I mean, people don't know. Maybe if we'd taken enough of that Asian information, we would know, but we don't. We don't know that you can plant these things together and they really help each other. Mm-hmm. And I guess the other part of it is that, from the reading I've done, a lot of companion planting that people say works in England, you know, from the ancient traditions they've got, really doesn't always work. You know, when they do scientific trials with beans, with tomatoes or whatever, it's much more complicated than just, you know, beans with tomatoes working.
So actually it's trial and error for your part also.
And fun, you know, we love just planting it and see what happens.
But this is definitely an experimental garden, and we're far from perfection, and we're still making heaps of mistakes, but we're enjoying ourselves making them.
Okay.
And along the way we initially thought we'll only plant edible species, and then we suddenly realised, well, we love flowers, and the birds and the bees love the flowers, and so different species have come in. Actually, the ones that you see here are all edible in this main garden, but we've now sort of widened our scope, and we have other plants that aren't edible as well, but may have other uses.
Okay.
Out the way.
It looks like you have also involved your kitchen into the permaculture philosophy, because it's sort of outside, inside. What is it?
That's right. It's hard to work out where the garden stops and the house starts, really. What we're aiming for is to have a little bit of the garden come in and the house to transfer on into the garden. It's an easy way of living here in the tropics. It's a bit silly to have your kitchen in a hot room. It's lovely to be in the open, doing your dishes right in the open air. It just feels lovely. It feels very, very nice. We always know what the weather's doing, even when it's pouring down in the wet season. We're nice and dry in here, and it feels good. It feels lovely.
It's very important. If we look at the way things are arranged today, people have to get more expensive mortgages that tie them to jobs they often don't like to do. So one of the permaculture aims is to provide cheap housing for people. And there are very few things that people need, but shelter is one of those. And those are things that shouldn't be needing to, like in Japan, I think the children actually help still pay for the building. You know, the mortgages go for more than one lifetime.
But now a lot of viewers in Holland will think like, yeah, that's pretty easy here in the tropics. Do you have any suggestions how it could be in a different climate?
Sure. I mean, if you look around here, it's not what it's made of. It's the fact that the thinking behind it. We're using things that don't cost much. Like the steel that's from here is all from stuff that was being thrown away. We've actually experimented with a number of different building techniques, a number of earth techniques, using earth. This here is wattle and daub, which is basically just mud and sticks.
Yeah.
You know, if you remember the story of the three little pigs. It works. Straw houses work. Mud. This one here is cement and sawdust.
Yeah.
The thing is to use the resources in an area. I mean, here we can use wood because wood's being burnt here. There's so much wood that in the timber mills they mill the best pieces and everything else just gets burnt.
So really it comes again to the point like look around you, what is there, and work from what you see around you, and then it's possible.
There's a lot of wastage that goes on, especially in the cities. And so if you're actually there with your eyes open, you can find so much that you can build from.
Yeah.
You haven't seen an author accommodation yet, have you?
No, we haven't.
That's an old van,
Yeah.
and it's
Well, you
with a bit of art. It's
maybe tell me
been nice.
what is woofing?
WWOOFing stands for Willing Workers on Organic Farms.
Yeah, and it's an organization in Australia only, or?
Well, I think it's in many different countries. I'm not sure if it's in Holland, but it's certainly in Europe.
Yeah,
And it started in England.
yeah.
I think it started as weekend workers on organic farms, but it's become a huge network where basically you pay a small amount of money and you get a booklet of all the host farms that allow you to stay in exchange for a bit of work, and you get the food and accommodation.
Plus the knowledge
Sure.
of how
It's
permaculture
a
works.
cultural exchange. We actually get as much from the woofers as they get from us, really. It's like continuing travelling, because we've got people, complete strangers, coming and living with us.
Yeah.
We make friends with them. Now we've got
made a lot of
friends
friends.
all over the world.
Yeah, yeah.
It's wonderful.
I've seen
We've got
German girl around here. Maybe we could,
Stephanie?
Stephanie, maybe we could ask her how her experience is.
yes.
There were two reasons because, yeah, that I would like to do it. The first reason was to stay in a family, to improve my English, and the second reason was to how they work, how is a farm in Australia, and I'd like to knew a lot about permaculture, because it's completely different to that what my parents do in Germany, because I have a dairy farm, and that's completely different to the permaculture.
Yeah,
culture.
I can see that. But
Yeah.
what kind of difference could you really say, like, is really evident for you?
Because here they do a lot of organic work. We in Germany, my parents, they need a lot of fertilizer. That's right. Fertilizer. And here they make their own bread, they make their own food, and they have all the kinds of fruit and vegetable in their own garden. And on our farm we have no vegetable and no food. We only we mess the cows and the beef, and then we
so monoculture actually.
yeah.
Okay.
We've had well over 100 people come and stay with us in the last 8 years, and many of them are still friends. We're still corresponding with them. They came as strangers, and they've left as very, very good friends. There's one of the pythons on the property. So a lot of the travellers are from overseas. They've never ever seen any of the Australian wild animals before, but here they get to experience quite a few of them, and they just become part of the family. Another python in the house. Oops, sorry, I'll turn back to that one. This is a python that was just over on that wall. And there.
Oh yeah.
And yes, we've actually even had love matches made here. There's been we've had some partnerships made and some babies born from people who've met here, which is lovely.
This is the worm farm, and what happens is when you want to get their manure, so here's a worm, like this.
You can see the worm.
So separate the worms from the manure.
Yeah.
Start watering down here and leave it up here.
Yeah.
So then they hate the dry, so we'll all move down here. And here's a worm. And then be a worm away. You take the covers off as well.
Because the worms don't like sunlight, do they?
Yeah, because the worms don't like the
Oh,
sunlight.
I see. Okay. Here.
Okay, in the guinea pig.
And what are guinea pigs for?
The guinea pigs actually have a number of purposes. Oh, careful, Dan. They provide a lot of fertilizer for the garden.
Yeah.
and we actually eat them.
Really?
So, a lot of people turn their noses up at guinea pigs, but they actually taste like chicken, and they actually can.
I want to hold it.
I'm just trying to think of the
Here's
words.
the guinea pig.
That's a baby guinea pig. They can exchange energy from food into meat at a much greater rate than a cow can. So it's actually, this is the guinea pig poo, which is beautifully pelletized, and it can go immediately onto our vegetable garden. It breaks down very nicely, and so we put food in there in the morning and we have manure in the evening. This is shredded paper from an office, and instead of actually using mulch or grass that we have to pay for, we get given all of this shredded paper, which is a rubbish for somebody else. We put it underneath the chickens poo on it, and we can put it into the worm farm, and the worms can break it down and we can make good manure.
And that's real permaculture.
That's permaculture working.
Only 3 eggs.
As in the vegetable garden, we've planted things quite closely together. Used the bananas here as intercrops between the main fruit trees. Like here we've got a custard apple, but eventually this is going to be a very big tree. But in the meantime, we're growing the bananas, which will give a crop within 2 years. And when the bananas start to get in the way of the main fruit tree, then we'll cut it down and it just becomes mulch.
Let me see. So here are ducks and like more animals are very important in permaculture, right?
Animals are important in nature, and therefore they're very important in the garden system. With permaculture design, we're trying to work out how to get the animals to do the work for us, rather than us having to do the work for the animals. And sure, they do work fertilizing the garden. They do weeding work, and yeah, they basically spread fertilizer through the orchard. That's one of their main roles. And they also here we've put them in the grass area so that they can help minimise the amount of mowing we have to do.
Maar voordat u het idee had gekregen dat Australië een en al weelderig groen is, dan moet ik u teleurstellen. Dat was ongeveer een eeuw geleden. Inmiddels is zo'n 80% platgebrand voor de veeteelt. En hier ziet u zoiets. Ook 's nachts gebeurt dit vaak, om een beetje uit het oog van de autoriteiten te blijven. Hoewel de Van Raders kozen voor een wel, in mijn ogen, heel rigoureuze aanpak van de permacultuur, zijn er ook andere mogelijkheden. Bijvoorbeeld wonen in een eco-village. Ik was zeer benieuwd hoe dat zou gaan. We hadden een afspraak gemaakt met Barry, de initiatiefnemer van Kookaburra Park. Barry wilde maar al te graag zijn visie uit de doeken doen. En die volgt bij deze.
Those who learn from one who is learning drink from a running stream. Those who learn from one who has ceased to learn drink from a stagnant pool.
Exactly.
So what he's saying is that if we're learning as we go through developing a place like Kookaburra Park to be ecologically sound and sustainable, then the children can learn how to be sustainable and how to sustain the world.
Yeah.
And here in a little place like Chinchin in Australia, we can be able to put together the people that can teach the world.
Yeah.
A different way, a new way. Why not?
Yeah.
Now is a really fabulous time, because this is the time when we're making our mistakes, when we're having our learning experiences, when we're learning to live back as a tribe, as a group of people again, which is pretty exciting.
Oh yeah.
That's really great. And so this is the fun time. And my son Grant, about 4 or 5 other people were involved in it as well. So they put this together as a proposition to the local council here, and this just outlines all that we're wanting to do with Kookaburra Park. And the general idea of the park is that we took a 500-acre piece of land and we outlined where we could put building lots so that we wouldn't interrupt any flow of water. And you'll notice nobody owns anything where any water flows. No dogs and no cats are to be had in Kookaburra Park. So we have this wonderful wildlife, and they don't get chased or eaten or anything like that. The other list of things are suggestions, and we suggest that people don't spray toxic chemicals, and we suggest that people don't use artificial fertilizers. Now, because the people that come here are people who don't want to do that at any rate,
exactly, yeah,
they don't do it. So we try, instead of forcing a person to do something, that we make the suggestions.
Yeah.
We suggest that we don't cut trees down where we don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Just we don't say you cannot cut trees down. You know, on common property, we say if you're going to cut a tree down, you've got to ask the body corporate. If you've got a good reason to cut the tree down, that's okay. But if you haven't got a good reason to cut the tree down, leave it alone.
Yeah.
So that's the type of rules that we're trying to work with.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we can make our own rules as a community, because we are all part of the body corporate.
Exactly.
So we have meetings and sit down, and like right at the moment, a chap who is an ex-building contractor from down in Victoria, he wants to increase the size of Ring Lake. So with his own money, he's got a big excavator coming in, he's going to do this digging out, he's going to make playgrounds for children, he's going to make sandy areas for a beach, just because he wants to out of his own heart. Kookaburra Park was a great thing to do. I used to sell 40-acre blocks, 25-acre blocks, this sort of thing. But what was happening was people were then having to get water, electricity, they were down dirt roads, which means...
Oh, you just saw that...
I saw that it was very untenable.
Yes.
Australia is such a dry continent that if you haven't got good water at all times, then your land's worth nothing.
Oh,
it's useless to you.
Yeah.
The other thing is that when you go away from your small block of land, what is happening these days, and it never used to happen in Australia, is someone will come in and take what you've left.
What?
Oh, really?
They will come in and pinch anything that's not nailed down.
Oh, really?
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, I mean, my salesman just had to go down to the Sunshine Coast where his fiancée lives. It's a woman in her 50s, I suppose. She came up to see him for the weekend. Her house was trashed.
Oh, really?
And things stolen out of it. And he just went down there and helped her out, got all the stuff and moved her up here. We have people out in the 25-acre blocks around here and the 40-acre blocks, etc. And if you've been up north, the same thing will apply. As soon as you go away and you leave, what you've done, what you've got, you're vulnerable.
Yeah, that's very true.
The other thing is that in times of hardship, it's much better to be part of a group, because we can support each other.
Yeah.